Hello, welcome to another tutorial about Python from the W3schools website. This tutorial will be about global variables in Python. So if you want to follow along, just go to the W3schools.com website /Python and then click on global variables. You can follow the other tutorials by just going to the tutorials previously in the list earlier up. So global variables. What are global variables? Okay, a global variable are variables that are created outside of a function. As in all of the examples above, are known as global variables. We'll see in the examples when we go along. Okay, so they're saying that all the examples that we did earlier are global variables. They're because the variables were created outside of a function. It says here, global variables can be used by everyone, both inside the functions and outside. Okay, so here's an example. They're going to create a variable outside of a function and then use it inside of the function. So they've created this variable x and assigned it the value of awesome. They then define the function called myfunc, and in that function it's going to print this string Python is and then plus the value of the variable, which is awesome. Okay, so let's give it a try. Let's run this. And I want you to try this as I'm doing this here. I want you to do the same thing. Okay. So the first thing you could do is just comment this out. Okay, just run it and then comment it out. Run it again. You should have a blank screen here, or a blank output. Then I want you to just type it out on your own so that you get the hang of just coding the syntax in Python. Okay, X is awesome. We're going to define myfunc. We're going to define the function myfunc. We're going to print Python is, and then we're going to add the x variable to it. Then we're going to call the function myfunc, and then we're going to run it. Okay, so let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so it worked. Okay, so it's saying Python is awesome. Now, why are they showing us this? Remember, the point of this is to look at global variables, right? Variables that have global scope. So there's a variable here that's created outside of a function, and it's considered to have global. It's considered to be a global variable. Okay. And then we have this function here where we're defining the function and we're performing the print function inside of that function. And then it's accessing this global variable x and it's printing out myfunc. It's taking the value x from outside of the function. Okay, that's the important point. Remember, it's using the x variable, but the x variable is defined outside of the function. So that's why it's global. Okay? If instead we define x inside the function, so in here, it wouldn't be global, it would be local. The variable would be local to the myfunc function. Okay? This is just to show you. This will become more clear when we go over the next examples. Okay, so let me go to the next one. So again, just to reiterate, this is a global variable, okay, because it's defined outside of a function. Okay, let's read this. So if you create a variable with the same name inside a function, this variable will be local and can only be used inside the function. the global variable with the same name will remain as it was, global, and with the original value. Okay, it's a little bit complicated to wrap your head around just by reading it. So let's practice this, okay? So it says here, create a variable inside a function. So they're creating a variable inside of a function with the same name as the global variable, global variable. Let's give it a try. Okay, run it. Let's see what happens. So it's saying, so let's just take a look at the code here. So declare the global variable. That's right here. I'll just say here, global variable, okay? Then define the function myfunc. Now remember, everything that's indented here is part of the myfunc function definition, okay? Including this variable x, which is a new variable with the same name, okay? X as the global variable x, but it's local. It's a local variable, okay? And then they're going to call the myfunc function, okay? And then here they're printing Python is x. Okay, why did they do this? Why are we getting... So here we're getting output Python is fantastic, right? And the variable is defined inside the function. And then here we're getting Python is awesome. Both are using the x variable name, right? Why is that? Okay, let's try to understand here. Okay, so okay, so we're calling remember, this myfunc is executed before the print Python is plus x global variable, okay? It's called before it, right? So since it's called before it, this code here is executing this function definition. And then it's redefining a x variable locally, okay? And it's assigning it the value of fantastic. So that's why when it's running, you're getting Python is fantastic, because it's basically redefining the x value, the x variable to fantastic locally. It's not using, say, I just want to show you this. So what if I commented this fantastic out? What do you think is going to be output now? What do you think this is going to output? Let's run it and see. Awesome. You notice? So why do you think that happened? Because in the print function defined inside of myfunc, okay, x is actually using the global variable x. X has a global scope. It means it's accessible by any member inside of in this code, in all this code, okay? So it's accessible by myfunc function, and it's accessible outside of that myfunc function. See, it's also accessed here, right? Print. So print Python is plus x. So this is using the global variable x. This print function is defined inside myfunc, but it's using the global variable x. If we remove this comment, we're redefining x inside of the myfunc function. And then whenever we call the myfunc function, we'll call it something else because it's confusing. We'll just call it my x. Whenever we call my x function, okay, whenever we call my x function, we output the local variable x. because we've redefined it inside of the myx function. Let's run it. And we get Python is fantastic. Okay, we get the local variable x value instead of the global variable x's value. Okay, play around with this. I think you'll get the hang of it. I think you understand how this works, and we'll try another example just to get a better understanding. Okay, so the global keyword. Also, when you go over the exercises at the later on, you'll get a chance to get the hang of this, to practice this. Okay, the global keyword. So you can also, it says here, normally when you create a variable inside a function, that variable is local and can only be used inside of that function. That's another important point. So a local variable can only be used inside of the function. Okay. To create a global variable inside a function, you use the global keyword. So you can actually create a global variable inside of a function by using the global keyword. We'll see that right here, okay? So if you use the global keyword, the variable belongs to the global scope. So here, let's just give it a try here. Okay, I'll run this. So here they're defining a function called myfunc. Okay. They're declaring a variable x. They're not assigning it anything, but they're saying, hey, this variable, normally it would be local. Okay, normally it is a local variable. Okay, because it's defined inside of the function. But because we've used the global keyword, it's global. Since we use the global keyword. Okay. I think this is called, I'm not sure what this is called in Python, this kind of word. It's not called a keyword. I think it's called a modifier. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, there's a special meaning to these kinds of words. But anyways, so this, using the keyword, I'll just call it keyword for now, keyword global, we've now made this variable a global variable, meaning to say it has the same effect on the variable as calling it or defining it outside of the function. So it's the same as basically declaring it outside of the function. Okay. So then after that, after we've declared the variable inside the function, we assign it the value of fantastic. Then they call the function myfunc, and then after that they print Python is x. Okay, now notice how x wasn't defined outside of the myfunc. It was defined inside of myfunc. Okay, you see here? But they're able to access it because by using this global modifier or global whatever global keyword, you're able to tell Python, hey, I want this variable here to be accessible outside of the function. I want other functions or other code, any code in this file, to be able to access the value of this x variable. So then when you call the print function here, not the myfunc, you call print here, it is able to access the x variable, which was defined locally inside of myfunc, but then modified into a global variable by using the global keyword. Okay, so run that. So again, you get Python is fantastic. Okay. I want you to do this. I want you to write it out. I know it's tedious, I know, but this is the only way to learn. So this is the best way to learn, is just to write it out, even though you might understand it, but you get used to using it when you write it out. So myfunc dot global x. So we're declaring a variable x locally, but we're saying it's global by using the global keyword. We're making the scope global. Okay, global scope. Okay, then we're going to assign a value to the variable. Okay, and then we're gonna get out of the function definition here, because remember, when you in Python, these indents mean that it's part of the same block, and being part of the same block means that it's part of this function definition. As soon as you get out of this, right, as soon as you get out of the block by removing this white space, you're now outside of the block. Okay, so whatever you write here won't be part of my func. So we're going to then call my func, the function my func. Okay, and then let's just run it and see what happens. It's giving us an error. This is good. It's good to have errors, okay, because that way you learn by making mistakes when you're practicing. So it says here, indentation error. Unindent does not match the outer indentation level. Okay, let's try and fix that. So, okay, let's take a look here. So it's saying there's an indentation error. So maybe if I go like this. Oh yeah, see here there's several spaces, and then the other one where there was a tab. So if I'll just use a single white space like that, and then see what happens. Let's run it. Okay, no, it doesn't. There's no error so far. That's good. So why isn't anything happening? Why is there nothing printing? Because we haven't told it to print anything. Inside of the function definition, there's no print, right? There's nothing telling it to print. We could print it out here. We could say, we could tell the myfunc function to give it the instructions to print inside myfunc. Okay, so let's say print x. The point of this is not to show you that you can call print inside of the myfunc, but it's actually to show you that you can declare the variable inside of a function, and then you can access it outside of the function. But I'm just going to run this just to show you that it will print after I've told it to print inside the function. Okay, so it did print. So now let's get rid of this. Okay, let's run it. Nothing's going to show up in the screen. Then we're going to say print. Okay. Python is what? Python is x. Okay. What is x? Really good. Run it. Now, the question is, this is a local variable, right? We've defined this locally inside my func, right? X here, it's defined inside of my func, but we've modified it. We've said, okay, this has global scope, meaning to say we can access the value of this variable outside of the function. Okay, so because we put this global here, we're able to access it outside of the function. Okay. Notice here. Okay, let me just run this. Okay, so it's saying Python is really good. Okay, that's great. Okay. What if I didn't call the function? What would happen? Would it still print Python is really good? Okay. What do you think? What do you think? Okay. Let's see. It's saying here, oh, there's an error. Name error. X is not defined. X is not defined. Interesting, because we've actually defined it inside of here, inside of this myfunc. Okay, and we said it was global, so it should be able to be accessed outside of myfunc. But what? So that's strange. But I guess from this, what this is telling us is that in order to be able to access a global variable that's defined inside of a function, you actually need to call the function first. The reason being is by calling the function, you're then running this code and you're defining the global variable by running the code. Okay, so let's run it again. And now it understands that Python is really good. It understands this x variable. What if we put the myfunc after the print? What would happen? What do you think? Do you think it will be able to access this variable that was set to global outside of the function if you call it afterwards? Let's see. No, it can't. So what this is telling us is that it's very important the order in which you place the code. Okay, if you call this myfunc function before you use the global variable, then it will be able to access the global variable. But if you call the function that has a global variable after, okay, you try to access the global variable, you won't be able to access it if you've set the variable to global inside of the myfunc. You have to first call the function before you can access it outside. Okay, so that's what that's telling us. So for me as a developer, I probably wouldn't do this because I can see how there could be a lot of mistake. You might end up with a lot of errors by doing this. Okay, for me, I would prefer to just create the variable up here, okay, and then put a great here, and then if I wanted to change it, I'd prefer not to use a variable with global scope to define it with global scope inside of a function, sorry. Because I think it would be, you'd end up with fewer errors by doing it this way. And then you can still access it, right, outside of the function. You'd still be able to access the x value, right, because you've defined it globally, right, global scope. It has global scope when it's defined outside of the function. Okay. And then it's set locally here. So let's run this. Okay, so it's able to access this x outside of the function because it's global. Okay, I want to go back here. I don't want to confuse everyone too much with this. So I wanted to see here. The point here was to look at this global keyword inside of the function. Now, let's run this again. We'll put this here. Remember, you have to call the function before you can access the variable which was set as global inside of a function. Okay. So run it. Python is really good. Now, what if we get rid of this global here? What happened? What do you think is going to happen? Will it still have global scope? Let's try that. Let's see what happens. X. No, it's saying okay. First of all, it's saying there's an error in line 4, myfunc, or it's trying to access something in line 4, myfunc, and line 8. My question is the error here or is it here? Is there? I'm not sure because this is red. It looks like there might be an error here. Let me try and debug this. So I'll comment that out and run it again. Okay, it's saying X is not defined. Okay, let me move this up. Let me get rid of this. X is not defined. Oh, so it did get rid of the error, right? You saw line 8 is gone. And it's trying to access the variable X, right? It's looking for a global variable called X, but it's not finding it because why is that? Because this was defined locally, right? So let's run it again. Right? It's saying line 9, X is not defined. X is not defined. Okay? So how would we get how are we going to get rid of the error? First of all, let me just comment this out. I want to see if I'm not doing something else that's screwed up. Because there's no numbers here, so I can't really tell exactly where the error is. Let's see here. So it's not outputting anything. Okay, so there's no problem with this function. It's just that it's not printing anything. So the problem really is here. It's trying to grab this X, which wasn't defined. It was only defined locally, not globally. So how would you get rid of that error? Okay, you think it through. I want you to, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think through what the answer would be. How are you going to fix this problem? There are two possible ways, or probably more than two, but two ways that we've just learned in this lesson. Okay, what's the first way? So the first way would be to declare a global variable at the top here, okay? And then say Python is amazing, okay? Now run it. So that's one way. Okay, what's the other way? The other way is to, okay, use a global keyword in front of the local variable, in front of the variable which was defined inside of the function. And then you have to remember to call the function before you try to access the local the variable that's defined inside the function. So let's try that again. Python is, oh, we have a mistake here. Global. We've done something wrong here. What did I do wrong here? What did I do wrong? Let me check here. Global use. Okay, so it seems as if for some reason I can't assign it a value. Let me just see here if I'll just go like this. Run it. Yeah, you can't assign it a value while you call it global for some reason. So you need to first redeclare it without assigning anything, call it global, use the global modifier, and then assign it the value afterwards. So as you can see here, we're able to access the local variable globally because we've used this global keyword. So this was a pretty long lesson, and I know it's oh, there's another example here. Let's did we do this one? No, we just did this. We just did this. Okay. Did we? Oh, use the global variance to the global scope. Yeah, we did that. Let's try this. So the next example. Also use the global keyword if you want to change a global variable inside a function. Maybe we did this already. Let's just see. To change the value of a global variable inside a function, refer to the variable by using the global keyword. Let's try it. Let's try to see what they're talking about here. So I'm going to run this. X, we've defined a variable, global variable X. We've defined the function. Then we declare a global variable X. We assign it the value. Fantastic. We call the function. Oh, this looks like the same examples before. Don't see any difference. Okay, so let me go back here. What's the difference here? Let me copy this. And I'll paste it inside. I just want to see what is the difference. What's the difference? Okay, here we're okay. I see the difference. So here they're defining a global variable at the top. Here they're not defining a global variable at the top. So they're just saying that you can access a global variable if you've defined it inside of the function, and you don't need to then. There's no need then to define the variable at the beginning globally, with global scope at the beginning. Let me delete this. I just want to see. I'm just curious to see what's going to happen here. Yeah, so you're getting the same thing. So you're able to access the local variable globally because they've set it to global here. Okay, great. So that covers the global keyword in global variables in Python. And in that, so that basically covers pretty much all of the variable stuff. And in the next lesson, you're going to go over some examples of variables so that you can get some practice coding variables. Okay, so we'll go over this in the next one, and I suggest you to do this on your own also. Okay, so thanks again for listening, and this was the W3schools.com Python tutorial about global variables. Have a great one.